So next up, we have a presentation from David Brewer. And David Brewer is the director of Media Ideas International and Media Helping Media, where he works to support media transition in post-conflict countries. He has over 30 years of journalism and media experience. He was the managing editor of BBC Online, as well as CNN.com in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And recently, he worked on the launch of Al Jazeera English. So a lot of experience, and looking forward to it. Thanks, David.
Okay, so yes, thanks for the invite. I've just come over for the day from England. My background, as Ruth explained, I'm a journalist. I started in newspapers after doing 6 years voluntary work overseas, and then I went into radio, television, and online. I was one of the 3 journalists who built BBC News Online in 1997. The BBC didn't have a news website, and they asked some of us to put a website together. And that was my background in new media. I'm not one of those journalists who think that you have to go to university or do any particular work to become a journalist. All you need to do is be able to uncover stories. And so all of us in this room are journalists. We're all qualified to inform the public debate with information that, had it not been for you, the world would never have known. And that's the bottom line for journalism. Facts that once they're out in the public, the people can say that, had it not been for you, the world would never have known. And that's really the exciting side of the new development in new media. I don't even like the term new media, because it suggests that it's something new. And it's been around for some time now, and I've been involved in it, as I say, since 1997. I don't like the term UGC, user-generated content, because it suggests that the users are related to something, being old traditional media. And it sort of demeans it slightly. So I think we're in a new era here, and I'd like to take you through a few slides where I believe the social networking, the impact of blogging, of Twitter, of Ushahadi and other crowdsourcing tools are changing the face of traditional media and making everyone in this room relevant and important and crucial to storytelling going forward. So I was invited to come along and talk about On the Horizon for E-Thinkers. And I'm going to start controversially, Ruth, sorry about this, but I don't believe there's a horizon. We've got to aim beyond the horizon. Horizon suggests that there's limits. I don't think that's true. I think that once we start thinking of limits, we start to limit our editorial freedom, our expression, our sense of innovation. There's a big change happening in the media world. The impact of blogging and social networking and other media developments are having a massive impact on traditional media. And the audience behavior is changing. Television, radio, online, newspapers are seeing a fragmented audience. They're rushing away to try to make sense of news on their own terms. They're building social networking experiences around the news and adding value as they see fit. A massive widening of perspective that before journalists could never achieve. In the past, at the BBC, if we were doing a story on a certain topic, we would say, how can we get a voice that represents this point of view? And we would go through known, worn, weary contact sheets, parading often the same people time and again, sometimes the same people that appeared on the opposition channels, to get perspective. But now, with blogging, with Twitter, with other tools, perspective, global perspective, of totally different shades of opinion is available immediately to all journalists who take the trouble to engage with social networking. So there's massive implications for traditional and mainstream media. Implications for all media, that is, the bloggers too. And we don't talk about user-generated content, we talk about a particular skill in its own right. And there's opportunities and challenges. This is BBC News Online this morning. I took these screen grabs in the airport as I was coming over. BBC News Online is doing quite well in engaging the new audience, wherever that audience may be. On this story about the protests after the Iranian election, they covered it quite well. They introduced some blogging elements. Al Jazeera, with whom I also work as an editorial consultant, covered some of the blogging elements and what tweets were happening around the story. Deutsche Welle, unfortunately, in the 3 stories I read, made no mention of blogging or Twitter. France 24 did very well. They had a full story on the scope of voices and the range of voices coming out, both internally in Iran and in the diaspora, the community of Iranians living overseas. Euronews didn't seem to cover anything to do with blogging or Twitter. CNN, they did quite well. They did a whole piece on Twitter reports coming out of Iran. So you can see in the mainstream media, some of them have got it, some of them are still trying to get it, some of them may never get it. And what getting it means is engaging with the audience on the audience's terms. I think a massive change has happened in broadcasting. A massive change has happened in broadcasting. When I started as a journalist, we had the broadcast app model, or the publish app model, where the journalists just told the audience what they thought they should think. And when we created BBC News Online, we had a talking point forum where we engaged the audience on our terms. We would let you talk about whatever you wanted to talk about as long as we would let you talk about it. So we would set the topic for the day, and we would pre-moderate your comments and only allow those things which fitted our guidelines of taste, decency, objectivity, fairness, balance, and so forth. And I think all that's dying. I think it's a worn and tired model. And I think the model we're into now is the participate in and be part of model, where the audience is now crucial to actually creating the news, formulating it, and adding the perspectives. I want to take you through a few slides. I'll try and keep moving. I want to introduce you to some friends. Some of these friends are traditional journalists. Some of them are bloggers. Each has a story. Most of them are living on the edge of freedom of expression. Most of them have taken amazing risks in their own lives and in their own families and their own jobs to stand up for freedom of expression in areas where freedom of expression is either muted or tried to be silenced. These are often countries just on the border of post-conflict countries or transition countries, but countries going through some sort of change. And as a country goes through transitional change, so do the minds of the journalists, so do the minds of the politicians, and so do the minds of the people who live there. And I want to go through some examples here. Just going back to, before I jump onto that, going back to this morning, BBC did a really good report on Twitter and blogging. If you look at these slides, this report that I'm just showing you here was how the internet is bringing the news out of Iran. So they had a page looking at Twitter and a page looking at the blogs. And the top blog they did was the Huffington Post. And the Huffington Post had live updates of blogs and tweets coming out of Tehran. And then there were a few other blogs that the BBC linked to. The Global Voices blog, they linked to a person within Tehran just giving opinions coming out. They linked to another group of people in the diaspora who are collecting information. A bloke who looked at the electoral system. They looked at someone who's translating all the tweets into English and putting them on a blog. And this is massive, because in the past the BBC would not do that. Another broadcaster with whom I've been associated, I got an email this morning saying that they read out on air about, there's blogs coming out of Tehran and tweets, as if it was something really strange, as if, with a slight sort of smile and a joke in their voice, as if this is something we don't really touch because we're the mainstream media, we're the big boys and we tell you as it is. Well, all that's changing. So let me just go through some of these friends on why blog. There's a guy called T.P. Mishra. Thakur Mishra, is a guy who lives in the Bhutanese refugee camps in Nepal, and he's lived there for 17 years. These people are not allowed to earn a living. Nepalese law says you cannot earn income if you're a refugee. They're supported by donor aid. But TP and his friends blog. And they started blogging, and I have, over one of my websites, been helping to train him in journalism. He blogs here, this is his reason, to improve his writing skills, to highlight the plight of his people, and to get solidarity and support behind them. Here he is. This is with his newspaper. He moved from blogging to produce the Bhutan Reporter. The Bhutan Reporter is given free of charge because you can't make any money out of these things because of Nepalese law. So he thought that wasn't good enough. So he got